Hi, I'm Harold Bell, and this is the Legends of Inside Sports and the Way We Were. Well, I want to travel back down memory lane since this is Black History Month, and I want to talk about, you know, some important people who played a role not only in Black history, but American history, because that's what Black history is. It's American history, and you can't separate it. If you look over my shoulder, you see some of those folks who played a leading role as it relates to Black history and American history. At the top of the heap, you see my main man, Muhammad Ali. And then, of course, you see the great Red Auerbach of the Boston Celtics. Then you see Paul Robeson, one of the great athletes, actors, vocalist of all times out of Rutgers University, where he was an All-American, and the sacrifices that Paul made on behalf of so many of us. And then there is, of course, the great Jackie Robinson, who broke the barriers in Major League Baseball in 1947. He was alone, by himself, no other black teammates or men of color, just Jackie by himself. And when I think of Black History Month, I think of Red Auerbach. I think of John Brown, the abolitionist. White men who helped to chart the cause of so many black brothers and sisters. But I'm concerned because on Monday, February 12th, there was a protest by the NAACP chapter of Boston after the Boston Police Department honored the late NBA Hall of Fame basketball coach Red Auerbach of the Boston Celtics. Now, this was one of those times when it was best to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. Meet the NAACP chapter of Boston. I remember when the black community in the late 70s was accusing the Boston Celtics of being the most racist team in the NBA on sports talk radio in Washington, D.C. It was during an interview with Washington Post sports editor George Solomon on my Inside Sports Talk show. I suggested that I write a column proving them wrong, and I did. I reminded black folks who didn't have a clue that in 1950, Chuck Cooper of Duquesne University and a second-team All-American was drafted by Coach Red Auerbach and owner Walter Brown. Cooper would become the first black player drafted and signed by an NBA team. The NBA is now the most integrated pro sports organization in America, despite the fact that the plantation mentality still lingers. But the Boston Celtics are no longer the bad guys. NBA history today is a watered down version of the history that I lived. I remember the racial divide at Bullets Wizards Press media table at games in 1974. It was one of my white colleagues, Frank Pastor, who brought the divide to my attention as we stood looking down at the court at the top of the steps of the arena. He told me, Harold, do you notice something? That they got blacks on one side of the half court line and whites on the other side of the half court line. I said, wow, you're right. He suggested we switch seats, and the segregated press table was integrated without a visible protest or sit-in. Let me remind the NAACP, Red was the first coach to play 5 black players at the same time. He was the first to hire the first black coach, Bill Russell, and the first to hire a black general manager, also named Bill Russell. During the tenure of owner Walter Brown and Red Auerbach, the Boston Garden was a racial-free zone. The stifling racial strife in the city of Boston for the past several decades was not allowed in Boston Garden during the Celtics games. When games were played in the Garden, the redneck riffraff had to check their KK robes and hoods at the gate and replace them with a shirt and tie or blue jeans and t-shirts. Boston Garden security had orders to show the exit to those who did not comply. When Basketball Hall of Fame had forgotten the contributions of pioneer Earl Lord, the first black to play in the NBA in 1950, Red, sports columnist the late Dick Heller, and I reminded them. The timing could not have been better. The NBA All-Star Game was to be played in Washington, D.C. at the MCI Center in February 2001, and it was just a few months away. I laid out the plan to honor Earl during that weekend. The first event would be in his hometown of nearby Alexandria, Virginia, with an Earl Lord Day. There would be a youth basketball clinic and a tribute in his honor later that evening in Washington, D.C. at the historical Bohemian Caverns. The evening turned out to be a winner. My ace in the hole, who had my back, was NBA godfather Red Auerbach. There was a sabotage attempt. I detect Earl getting a little weak, but he regrouped when I told him that Red was going to be at the event, and the tribute was a success. It was the only all-star event Red participated in that weekend. Basketball royalty was in attendance. Casey Jones, Al Attles, Earl Monroe, Phil Chenier, Jim Bad News Bond, Sonny Hill, Sam Jones, Leonard Hamilton, and Clarence Big House Gaines. Earl Lord was finally inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in 2003, over 50 years later. Thanks to Red Auerbach and Washington Times sports columnist, my friend Dick Heller. Without them, Earl never would have made it. Better late than never. You know, there is a familiar warning. If you don't know your history, you are bound to repeat it. Someone forgot to tell the NAACP chapter in Boston that they had honored Red in 1960 for the exact same thing that the Boston Police Department was doing in 2018. Hopefully, Red and Dottie's footprints will be evident again on the weekend of February 18th at the 67th NBA All-Star Game at the Staples Center. Well, Red Auerbach's one-loss record in human and civil rights was nothing to sneeze at. He was in a class by himself. The NAACP needs to read its own history. When I coined the phrase, every black face you see is not your brother, and every white face you see is not your enemy, the two men that inspired me to come up with that phrase was President Richard Nixon and the great Red Auerbach. How can we make February Black History Month and ignore the contributions of white folks? Two wrongs don't make a right. Red Auerbach and the Brown Boys, Walter and John. The common denominator? They freed a whole lot of people. My question to the NAACP and the Congressional Black Caucus, what is in your wallet? I would like to close out today's program giving Red Auerbach the last word.
Hello, I'm Harold Bell, and my celebrity co-host is NBA Hall of Famer and President of the Boston Celtics, Red Auerbach. How you doing, Red?
Pretty good. Nice to be here.
Red and I will be right back with our celebrity guest, former Celtic great and NBA Hall of Famer, Sam Jones.
The most efficient, complete, and effective exercise equipment in the world is you. When you walk, you exercise with the levels and weights of your own body. You lift it, you move it from side to side. You propel it forward, you push it, you push. You don't have to go on health club to walk. You are the machine. You are your own exercise equipment. Put on a pair of Nike walking shoes, open the door, and just do it. Just do it.
Red, what kind of shooter was Sam Jones?
I've never yet had a ball player that played for me that shot with confidence the way Sam Jones did. And you know, people don't understand how many hours you practice this. They think it's just natural. It's not natural. You got to be serious when you work on it. I didn't go out and take half-court shots because that's not what I'm going to do in the ball game. I got the same shots that I was going to take on our players. And I knew what our plays, and I knew where my shots were coming from, and those are the shots that I took. And I tell all the kids today, when you're in training out there by yourself shooting, don't take those shots you're not going to take in a game. Take the shots that you're going to be using in a ball game. And build up when you have all the confidence in the world that the ball is going to go in. And they never understand, the young kids today, that the great athletes practice the hardest.
Celebrity Sports Hall was brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Welcome to Celebrity Sports Ball, brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Hello, I'm Harold Bell, and my celebrity co-host is NBA Hall of Famer and President of the Boston Celtics, Red Auerbach. How you doing, Red?
Pretty good. Nice to be here.
Red and I will be right back with our celebrity guest, former Celtic great and NBA Hall of Famer, Sam Jones.
The most efficient, complete, and effective exercise equipment in the world is you. When you walk, you exercise with the levels and weights of your own body. You lift it, you move it from side to side. You propel it forward, you push it, you push. You don't have to go on a health club to walk. You are the machine. You are your own exercise equipment. Put on a pair of Nike walking shoes, open the door, and just do it. Just do it.
Sam, what was your greatest moment in sports?
Well, all the great that you got my coach Red Auerbach there, and I'm gonna give you something that he will remember. He had won 17 straight games, and the 17 straight games was he had also won 17 straight games with the Washington Capitals. So he decided that we should have a curfew, and the curfew would be in his room, and he had beer and coke and pretzels and sandwiches all over his room. And he stayed in his room until about 2:30 in the morning. And the next day we were playing the worst team in the league. And we get beat by 50 points. And Mr. Auerbach, that was the only curfew he has ever given to us in my 12 years of playing. And I'll tell you right now, that was a moment. It sure was, and I stopped giving curfews.
Celebrity Sports Hall was brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Welcome to Celebrity Sports Ball, brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Hello, I'm Harold Bell, and my celebrity co-host is NBA Hall of Famer and President of the Boston Celtics, Red Auerbach. How you doing, Red?
Pretty good. Nice to be here.
Red and I will be right back with our celebrity guest, former Celtic great and NBA Hall of Famer, Sam Jones.
position complete that effective exercise open in the world is you. When you walk, you exercise with your legs and weights of your own body. You lift it, you move it from side to side. You propel it forward, you push it, you pull. You don't have to join a help yourself to walk. You are the machine. You are your own exercise equipment. Put on a pair of Nike walking shoes, open the door, and just do it. Just do it.
What was it like being the NBA's first sixth man?
Well, I got this coming up a bit because we are the type of team that, and how this is, we're throwing out one of the things is being in shape. The Celtics, as far as I'm concerned, never reported the camp out of shape. We reported the first day being ready to play. We have such a team that other teams couldn't afford to substitute and back up with us because of our ability to run up and down the court. So when I came in the game, their players were tired. So I enjoyed coming off the bench because I knew that I could outrun everybody who had been playing. So I was able to score a lot of layups to get some long passes and two. That's right, and you were probably one of the fastest in the league. But I tell you, you had one thing that used to drive everybody crazy. It was bad enough when I liked the cigar, but when you used to take a shot, when they used to switch on you, what did you say? You say too late. Too late.
Celebrity Sports Ball was brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Welcome to Celebrity Sports Ball, brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Hello, I'm Harold Bell, and my celebrity co-host is NBA Hall of Famer and President of the Boston Celtics, Red Auerbach. How you doing, Red?
Pretty good. Nice to be here.
Red and I will be right back with our celebrity guest, former Celtic great and NBA Hall of Famer, Sam Jones.
The most efficient, complete, and effective exercise equipment in the world is you. When you walk, you exercise with your legs and weights of your own body. You lift it, you move it from side to side. You propel it forward, you push it, you pull. You don't have to join a help yourself to walk. You are the machine. You are your own exercise equipment. Put on a pair of Nike walking shoes, open the door, and just do it. Just do it.
Hey, Sam, you do a lot of clinics. If you're going to advise the kids today about the game of basketball, what would you tell them? Well, first of all, I would tell a kid he's got to have patience. I'm one of those times. I came up behind two great backcourt people, Bob Cousy and Bill Sharma, and they were just great. And clearly, coming out of a college, and not a big college, but you have a lot of young players who are coming out of the big schools who want to play immediately. They want to have an impact as soon as they come in, not realizing that a coach has brilliant players who are keep count on, players that they've been with them for a long, long time. So the best thing for that kid to do is stay in shape and have patience. That's right. They've got to be ready all the time because you never know when the opportunity is going to come up.
Celebrity Sports Ball was brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Welcome to Celebrity Sports Ball, brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Hello, I'm Harold Bell, and my celebrity co-host is NBA Hall of Famer and President of the Boston Celtics, Red Auerbach. How you doing, Red?
Pretty good. Nice to be here.
Red and I will be right back with our celebrity guest, Sam Jones.
The most efficient, complete, and effective exercise equipment in the world is you. When you walk, you exercise with your legs and weights of your own body. You lift it, you move it from side to side. You propel it forward, you push it, you pull. You don't have to join a help yourself to walk. You are the machine. You are your own exercise equipment. Put on a pair of Nike walking shoes, open the door, and just do it. Just do it.
Sam Jones is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, but one thing he did, he made the bank shot into an art. Sam, welcome aboard.
Thanks a lot, Coach. I don't call it weird, I call it Coach. All right. Sam, you told me a story once about Will Kane there. You waited for him to come out to the corner. First of all, Russell probably the greatest defensive player in basketball. But Will could have been just as great. But he handed to Russell to make baskets. And if he made a switch, and you pass the ball into Russell, and Russell jumped one time, Red knows about this. He got one dunk, Russell jumped one time, Will Kane was not going to come out to guard you anymore because he didn't like the Russell to score any points. And so I would always try to bait him to come out. I would say, come on out here, big fella. And as he started moving towards, I would keep the ball and holler, and wait. But once Russell scored that basket, he wasn't coming anymore, Howard. Celebrity Sports Hall was brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Red Auerbach, a living legend, a pioneer, innovator, Mr. Basketball, Mr. Celtic, winningest coach in the NBA, a great individual, and my friend. Hello, Red.
That was some kind of introduction, and keep it up, I might believe it.
Red, who do you admire and respect in sports history?
Well, there's so many of them, but I've always had a great deal of admiration for Jackie Robinson. Jesse Owens, and of course Bill Russell, played for me. But, you go on and on and on. I've got so many guys at the tip of my tongue. Even a guy like John Thompson has done. Then you talk about Doug Williams, you got Julius Erving, and the great athlete Jim Brown. But you have them in all sports. And not only sports, but hell, they're people. And I don't even think of it that way. I think of them as just great people and great athletes. When you take Bill Russell, he's a brilliant guy. He's got a lot of depth to him. Now look at John Thompson. Not only has he won and done so well as a winner, but look what he's done for the character of a lot of the kids that go to Georgetown. We don't know Jackie has done as far as pioneering, but forget all that. He just was such a great athlete. Take Jimmy Brown. He's the greatest lacrosse player in history, as well as one of the tops, if not the top, fullback that ever played a game of football. I was at this big affair for Jackie Robinson a couple weeks, and I had the pleasure of sitting with Jesse Jackson and Ella Fitzgerald, and I'll tell you, that was a memorable evening. I'll never forget it.
Red, I've heard on many occasions they say that Jackie Robinson didn't even play his best sport. Baseball was not his best sport.
No, football, I think, was his best sport. Although he was quite a good basketball player, too. We've had a lot of arguments as to who's the greatest athlete, all-around athlete, of all time. And it's always come back to between Jackie Robinson and Jim Brown. That really has done it, not the potential.
Red, what about Bill Russell's place in sports history?
People forget that. They know how great he was, but they don't realize that Russell was such a winner. He won 11 championships in 13 years. 11 championships. You talk about winning the close ones and performing in the clutch. I mean, there's a guy that did it.
Celebrity Sports Hall was brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it.
Okay. That was the one and only Red Auerbach. As we go out of here, I want to remind you, Black history is for all Americans. Thank you, Red Auerbach. I never could have made it without you.